At our family anniversary dinner, my father leaned in, napkin still in hand. Tell me about the $200,000 I gave you. What did you do with it? The room went still. Forks paused midair. My mother's smile faltered, and my brother's face lost all color. My heart pounded, but I kept my composure. What money? I replied, my voice steady. The chandelier hummed above us, the only sound in the silence. I looked at them, one guilty, one afraid. I reached for my phone, opened a folder, and slid it across the table. My dad's eyes widened. He hadn't expected that. The night before, I was in my Seattle apartment, surrounded by fabric swatches and unfinished marketing briefs. My life was simple, predictable, and peaceful. I'd built it from scratch, my own place, my own career, no handouts. Maybe that's why my father, Robert Bennett, always said I reminded him of himself. He ran a small construction company in Portland, and every call ended with, "I'm proud of you, Lucy." He never said that to my brother. Jason Bennett was the golden child who never quite delivered. 3 years older, charming, ambitious, but reckless. He burned through every business loan, always landing on his feet because our mother, Elaine, always rescued him. She called him my boy with big dreams. I was the responsible one, the one who cleaned up the messes. A week ago, Jason called, his voice too soft, too careful. "Hey, Dad's not feeling well. We might cancel the anniversary dinner." "Cancel?" I asked. He just emailed me about ordering wine for it. Jason hesitated. "He's been tired. I just think it's best if you don't come this time." The line went quiet. It didn't sit right. My father's 60th birthday and 40th anniversary, something he'd planned for months, wasn't something he'd skip without telling me himself. So I called him. He picked up on the second ring, his voice lively. "Lucy, you're still coming, right? Wait till you see what your mother's done." That's when I knew Jason was lying. On the flight home, I tried to reason with myself. Maybe he wanted attention. Maybe he felt left out. Maybe Mom didn't want tension. But deep down, I sensed something heavier. This dinner wasn't about celebration. It was about control. When I arrived in Portland, the Bennett house looked unchanged. White siding, trimmed hedges, the scent of pine candles my mother always lit for guests. She greeted me with a perfect smile and a hug that felt rehearsed. Jason appeared behind her, grinning too wide. "Lucy, you made it." I smiled back, but something in his eyes was nervous, watchful. For the first time in years, I felt like a guest in my own home. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon and my mother humming in the kitchen. The house was spotless, almost unnaturally so. Every photo frame gleamed, every candle perfectly placed. It wasn't hospitality, it was performance. At breakfast, Dad was cheerful, talking about a new deck he was building. He looked healthy, nothing like the sick version Jason described. Across from him, Jason barely touched his food, scrolling through his phone, pretending not to notice me. When Dad left to take a call, Mom leaned in. "Lucy, let's not talk about work or money tonight, okay? Your brother's been under a lot of stress." "Stress?" I asked. "From what?" She hesitated just long enough for the lie to show. "You know Jason. He's just trying to figure things out. Don't make tonight tense." That's when I noticed her hands. Her nails, usually perfect, were chipped. It wasn't stress. It was worry. Later, while setting the table, I overheard Jason on the phone in the next room. His voice was low, sharp. "No, I told you I'll pay it next week. I have it handled. Don't call me again." He hung up as soon as he saw me. "What was that about?" I asked. "Business," he said too quickly, shoving his phone away. "You wouldn't understand." Maybe he was right. I didn't understand how someone could lie so easily. When he left, I noticed a stack of envelopes on the counter, payment receipts. One addressed to an investment firm I recognized. My stomach twisted. That firm handled my father's accounts, not Jason's. That evening, as guests arrived, I slipped away to my old room. The hallway light hit my phone screen, where an email alert waited. It was from my bank, transfer confirmation. $200,000 completed. I stared at the number. My name was on it. My heart pounded. So, loudly I barely heard my father calling from downstairs. I refreshed the page. The money came from a joint account, a name I hadn't seen in years. Jason Bennett. My hands went cold. I didn't know how yet, but I knew why he'd lied about the dinner. The truth would come out at the table. I barely slept that night. The glow of my phone painted the walls as I scrolled through every transaction, every confirmation. The pattern was clear: small test payments, then one huge transfer, all under my name. The signature was digital, but the access came from inside my family. At sunrise, I went downstairs. Mom was making coffee, humming like nothing was wrong. I set my phone on the counter. "Mom, did you know about this?" I asked quietly. She looked up, confused, or pretending to be. "Know about what, honey?" I turned the screen toward her. The $200,000 transaction glowed between us. Her face tightened, then softened. "Lucy, please." Jason was in trouble. It was supposed to be temporary. He said he'd put it back before anyone noticed. My stomach dropped. Before who noticed, Dad or me? She sighed, glancing toward the hallway. "You've always been so independent. You wouldn't miss it. Your brother needed help." That sentence hit harder than any slap. You wouldn't miss it. I picked up my phone and left before she could say more. I drove to see Aunt Marjorie, the only one in the family who never played favorites. Her diner smelled like burnt toast and coffee, comforting in its honesty. Marjorie didn't even look surprised when I told her. "I figured as much," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "He came here last month bragging about some investment, paid for lunch with $100 bills. I kept the receipts. Inside were payments, watches, hotel bookings, luxury purchases, all dated the week the money vanished. I took photos of everything and sent them to Caroline Ross, Dad's lawyer and an old college friend. She called within minutes. "Lucy, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is financial fraud. If your father thinks you took it, you need to clear your name fast." "I'm not confronting him yet," I said. "Not until they're both in the same room." Caroline paused. "Then make sure you have proof ready." I smiled, a bitter calm settling over me. "I already do." That night, while Mom set the table and Jason poured wine, I sat at the far end, my phone beside my plate, the same folder I'd shown you at the start. I was ready. The dinner began like every other family celebration: too much wine, forced laughter, and just enough tension to choke on. The chandelier cast soft gold light over a feast my mother had curated like a magazine spread. Roasted salmon, lemon tart, silverware so polished it reflected our faces. Dad looked genuinely happy. "Lucy," he said, pouring me a glass, "I still can't believe you flew in just for this." I smiled, forcing the words past the lump in my throat. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Jason sat across from me, tapping his thumb on the table, his smile too wide. Every so often, he'd glance at Mom, and she'd give him a small nod, as if keeping time in some secret rhythm. For an hour, it almost felt normal. Stories about Dad's business, Marjorie teasing him about his gray hair. I almost let myself believe the worst was over. But the lie sat between us, heavy and waiting. Then Dad leaned forward, napkin in hand, voice calm but firm. "Tell me, Lucy, the $200,000 I gave you, what did you do with it?" The laughter died. The room froze. Forks hovered. My heart slammed once, then stopped. "What?" I whispered. He didn't blink. "The $200,000. I transferred it months ago. Your brother said you were using it for something private, but now I want to hear it from you." My mother's face went rigid. Jason's hand tightened around his wine glass. I swallowed, heat crawling up my neck. "What? $200,000? Silence. The chandelier's hum was suddenly deafening. Then Jason laughed, too loud, too forced. "Come on, Dad. Lucy's probably forgotten. She's got so much going on in Seattle." Dad's gaze cut to him. "Forgotten? $200,000 isn't pocket change." Jason's smile faded. I could feel every guest watching, pretending not to listen. Even Aunt Marjorie stopped mid-sip, her eyes narrowing. "I never received that money," I said, finally steady. "If you sent it, I didn't see a cent." Dad's brow furrowed. "I have the confirmation, Lucy. Same account you used for the business fund. It was your name." I took a slow breath, forcing calm over the storm inside. Then maybe you should look closer at who else had access. Mom stiffened. Robert not here. He turned to her, confused. Why not? If there's a problem, we can fix it. Jason set his fork down, the clink sharp in the silence. Dad, it's not a big deal. I can explain. Explain what? I cut in, locking eyes with him. The transfer you made using my name, or the hotel bills that came right after? He froze. Dad turned to me, sharp. What are you talking about? I reached for my phone, unlocked it, and opened the folder. My hands were steady now. I slid the screen across the table. Here, every transaction, same account, same timestamp, but authorized from Jason's IP address. Receipts, payments, even screenshots of his calls with the investment firm. Dad scrolled, his face draining of color. Jason, you did this. Jason's voice cracked. Dad, please. It's not what you think. I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back. Borrowed? Dad's voice rose, sharp and cold. You forged your sister's access and stole her money. Mom shot up from her chair. Robert, stop yelling. He made a mistake. A mistake? Dad snapped. Elaine, you knew. She hesitated, tears in her eyes. He was drowning in debt, Robert. I thought if Lucy never found out, no one would get hurt. I laughed, bitter. You thought I'd never find out. You signed my name. You let him take everything. Jason stood, hands shaking. I was desperate, Lucy. I didn't mean to ruin anything. Desperate enough to let Dad accuse me of theft. You sat there and watched me get humiliated for something you did. The guests were silent now. No more chatter, no clinking glasses. Just my father's slow, furious breathing. He turned to my mother. You two planned this. Robert, please, she whispered. It was for our family. He slammed his hand on the table, plates rattling. No, Elaine. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't steal. Jason's voice shrank. Dad, don't do this. We can fix it. Dad took out his phone. You're right. We can. He dialed without hesitation. Yes, I need to report a theft. $200,000. My mother screamed. Robert, stop. Don't do this to him. He didn't look at her. He did this to himself. Jason slumped in his chair, hands over his face. The lights flickered, the chandeliers hummed, turning into a soft electric drone. I sat quietly, my pulse steady. 30 minutes later, the police arrived. Their flashlights swept the room, red and blue lights spinning through the window. The room felt smaller, colorless. Jason didn't resist when they asked him to stand. Mom begged, sobbing, clutching his arm, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. Dad signed the statement without a word. When he looked at me, there was no pride, just heartbreak. Lucy, he said, voice rough, I'm sorry. I shook my head. You believed what they told you. You had every reason to. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. You wanted to know what I did with your money, I said. I protected it from them. The officers led Jason out. Mom followed, shouting promises no one believed. The door slammed behind them, leaving only silence and the faint echo of sirens. Aunt Marjorie came over, placing a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, she whispered. I looked down at the folder still open on the table, the screen dimming. Maybe, I said softly, but it doesn't feel like it. Dad sank into his chair, rubbing his temples. I raised them both, he muttered. How did we end up here? I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. Outside, the patrol car lights reflected off the window, the same cold shimmer that once came from our chandelier. And in that moment, I realized something simple and final. Sometimes justice doesn't sound like victory. It just sounds like silence. The weeks after that dinner felt unreal, like walking through a house that still smelled of smoke after the fire's gone out. Portland was quiet. The headlines faded. The whispers around town did not. Jason's name appeared in court documents, then in pitying conversations my mother could no longer control. Dad handled everything through Caroline Ross, his lawyer. The charges were clear: identity fraud, unauthorized transfer of funds. Jason avoided jail with a plea deal, but the restitution order was strict: pay back every cent or lose everything. Mom stood by him at every hearing, her face hollow, her hair unkempt for the first time in my life. When it was over, Dad called me into his office at home. The desk that once held blueprints was now covered in paperwork. I've rewritten my will, he said quietly. The company, the house, everything, it's yours. They'll get nothing. I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Maybe it wasn't revenge. Maybe it was his way of saying sorry. By the end of the month, Jason had sold his car, his watches, even the designer furniture Mom had bragged about. They moved to a rented duplex on the edge of town. I heard about it from Aunt Marjorie, not from them. When I left for Seattle, Dad helped me load my bags. The sky was gray, soft rain misting the driveway. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a single check, $800,000, the same amount he'd once meant for my future. You deserve your clean start, he said. Go build something you're proud of. As I drove north, Portland city lights faded in the rearview mirror. What replaced them wasn't peace, not yet, just clarity. 6 months later, I stood in front of my boutique in downtown Seattle, Harbor Line Studio. The sign still smelled of fresh paint. Inside, sunlight spilled across racks of tailored jackets and silk scarves, each tag handwritten with my initials. The $800,000 my father gave me had become more than a business. It was a quiet reclamation of everything I'd lost. Dad visits sometimes, bringing coffee and that same proud half-smile he used to give me as a child. Aunt Marjorie says the store feels like closure. Maybe she's right. I haven't heard from Mom or Jason in months. Their restitution payments come in slowly, small, mechanical reminders of what greed costs. Sometimes, when I close up at night, I think about that dinner table, the hum of the chandelier, the silence after the truth landed. Betrayal doesn't always destroy you. Sometimes it sharpens you. If you've ever had to defend your name against your own family, share your story in the comments.